Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation about your Kundalini awakening experience. My name is Chrism, and I'd just like to come right into it here. One of the biggest blockages a person can experience within the Kundalini is the fear of having something that you don't know about come into your body. And when we have the Kundalini, we'll be in a consistent and seemingly endless level of surrender. We'll surrender our lives, our thoughts, our dreams, and our bodies, and our understandings of life. And sometimes there will be no logic or reason attached to these surrenders. We may not feel the payoff or the goodness. This is, that is the Kundalini. And that is what it is bringing. And we may try to resist these levels of enforced grace. And make no mistake, this is an enforced grace. And even that level of beauty and joy and bliss is pushed at us rather than us reaching for it and wanting to have it occur, even though there are many people that do reach for it and want it to occur, and they do have it occur. So as a way of clearing your heart and your mind, giving you some clarification, I just want to say that the ego will worry that it is giving itself to a soulless force or come to the Kundalini as a victim of the internal and external applications of the Kundalini upon the psychology and the known desires of the ego as it struggles to maintain a form of linear understanding. And you're going to hear the bird in the background, and I apologize. We are now the home for one bird, one rabbit, 3 goldfish, 3 dogs, 1 kitty cat, and Sugar Babe is the Galpin bird that is letting us know that she is there. So just so you know, the ego will worry that it is giving itself to this evil force because the person is not aware of what is occurring, and so this begins the whole fear of the unknown scenario that a person may go into who has the Kundalini come upon them. Not so much for those who are reaching out and who have the Kundalini, within their realm of understanding. They've worked at it and they've tried for it and they've done all these things to try to have it come to them, and so it isn't such a surprise, except it will be a surprise in the actual having of the Kundalini. I mean, the actual having of it can be very, very, very strong. I'm going to go see if I can quiet her up a little bit. And Santara, I would like you, if you are available, to talk a little bit about what it's like to have fear of the unknown compromise your current situation.
Will do. Hi, everybody. I'm going to put Chrism in the blue there while he's doing that with the bird. Okay, well, hello, everybody. It's really good to be here. And so Chrism is talking today, at this point anyway, about, having fear, about, having something that you know absolutely nothing about come into your body. And this is what happened to me. I was not somebody who had known anything about Kundalini. I had never heard the word. I had a Kundalini awakening experience without doing yoga, without doing, any of the Eastern philosophies. I was raised a Catholic. I certainly had strange experiences all through my life, but I knew nothing about Kundalini. And for the first 3 weeks, when Kundalini awakened within me, I had the most incredibly blissful experience, and that sense of oneness and divine love stayed with me for a couple of weeks. But then what happened was that sense of divinity and love and knowing left me. it was as if Kundalini had left me, even as I say, I did not know that word. And I was left exactly as Chrism described, feeling that something had come into my body that I knew absolutely nothing about, and
Perfect.
I was terrified.
Perfect place
Hello,
to stop.
are you back?
Thank
you. Okay.
Thank you very much. And so, you know, when we have something come into the our own personal ego psychology, the ego itself is going to struggle to maintain a form of linear understanding, and yet that linear understanding will not be there for that ego to cling to. And so it's really important for you to know the level that, that surrender is absolutely okay within the Kundalini awakening. It is one of the best things that you can do for this. And I know I've spoken about this before on other programs, but I just want to say that the Kundalini knows you. It knows you better than you know yourself, and your past for you is no longer available to you. Thank you, Centaur. It's no longer available to you except as a wish that you can never really reach back into and try to fulfill the wishes that have gone by. Your expectations of how your life was supposed to be are changed in many ways as you encounter this force of Kunalini with the knowledge of your spiritual history, of your karma. We often will struggle to our own detriment because instead of giving ourselves into this divine consciousness. So please be aware of how you are going into and through this grace of divinity.
Okay, hi again, everybody. It's me. Chrism has been bumped off. He's not here, so I'm sure he's going to come back in a minute. So I'll continue to speak. So until he comes back. So what happened to me, remember, I was terrified in the context of having this amazingly strange movement within my physical body. I was having movement in my spine. I was having incredible energy projections coming out of my head. I was beginning to see dark shapes and things such as that in my waking time, and I didn't know what to make of it. Now, because I had had such an amazing experience of unity and God and divinity for 3 weeks, and because in the context, as Chrism said there, of my past spiritual experiences and my Catholic upbringing, I began to think, oh my goodness, something has come into me. It's the devil. I'm possessed, because I had no good feelings anymore. And I thought, what's after happening now is whatever has come into me has tricked me into thinking that it was good, but it wasn't good. And my ego went bananas. I mean, it really went bananas. I just went into deep, 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 deep fear. And there's a long story that I'm not even going to go into, but what I'll just say is, for a time, I didn't understand it then. The Kundalini stopped. The feelings in my spine, the movements in my spine stopped. The Kriya stopped. The huge, huge funnel and, we'll say, tall pole that I felt in my head came down, and that stopped. And for many months, life returned to normal again for me. And I was very grateful, and I was very, very happy to be just me again. And time passed, and then one night I suddenly felt a movement in my spine again, and I felt this huge infusion of divine. I mean, it's very hard to explain when the Kundalini and that sense of love and unity comes with the infusion, but I began to feel that again. And I knew in that moment, I had read a little bit about Kundalini, and it had terrified me as well previously. But I then knew that this was Kundalini because it was classic of what I had written, the snake movement up the spine. It was the beginnings of I'm not going to say spinal sweeps because I had already had that, but I suppose secondary spinal sweeps. And I knew in that moment that I was being offered by this source a choice to either go into fear or to go into surrender to what I had been shown earlier, to go into that place of love. So it was either love or fear. Love or fear. And I knew that I needed some support, and I just went straight to the website and I typed in Kundalini. And at that moment, up came Chrism's website. And I know I've told this story to you before, but what I read in those words, the first words I read in Kundalini, in Chrism's teachings, was about, this is not a place where we go into fear. We surrender to the Kundalini, and I read all about service and love. And the Kundalini within me resonated so much with that, and I had such a response from what was happening in my body that I knew instantly that I had been directed by the source to the source, by the source within me to the source, which was Chrism's teachings. And I began to read more, and everything I read, there was a response from my Kundalini, and I knew it was truth. And I went, and I didn't even have at that stage, I didn't even have an email. So this was in the days when it was back in 2009, when Chrism's group was on the Yahoo. It was a Yahoo group. And so I decided, and I was a very private person, but I decided that I really needed to connect in with the forum, and I created an email. I didn't use my real name. I took the name of my grandmother and my maiden name, and I put them together as my ID. And I went, and it was a huge leap of faith for me, and I joined the forum. And I introduced myself, and I told my story. And instantly I was supported by people. And the more I read from, the experiences of the people on that group at the time, the more I knew that my experience was most certainly a Kundalini experience, and the Kundalini had led me to this source of its teachings for me. And it was the most incredible feeling to know that I didn't have to choose fear, and that to surrender to everything that the Kundalini was doing with me. I knew that anyway because I had done that in the first 3 weeks. And I knew that that's what I was being offered, again, that opportunity. And so I listened to the teachings of Chrism, and when things, were strange, I surrendered to the Kundalini, and continued to do that from that point onwards in my process. And no, I'm not saying that there weren't times when I didn't, my ego responded with fear, but I would immediately, as far as I possibly could, go into surrender to the Kundalini and began. Chrism has a surrender it's a surrender prayer, and it's I surrender to love, I surrender to truth, I surrender to God, and this was Chrism is back. Hi, Chrism, you got bumped off.
Oh my God. It's endless.
I hope you did tell me you knew it immediately, or have you been talking for the last...
No. I actually got to see it this time, so blessings for small things. And thank you for holding it together, my dear. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. I'm going into the blue now.
Okay. Wow. Well, it's interesting, these little interruptions will come into our life, and we just have to make the adjustment. Not everything is perfect in the world here, especially not in this world, and so we have to remember that as I was saying, Kundalini knows your spiritual history, it knows your karma, and so a person's going to struggle to their own detriment instead of giving themselves into the divine consciousness. And so really look at how you are going into this and how you are responding to this. The changes and the transformation that are brought about are not always easy, and a person can be really, really assisted by adopting levels of flexibility within these changes, and because these changes are going to come to us no matter how we feel about it. So really let yourself embrace the Kundalini and the divine transformation. Whether you believe in divinity or not, it doesn't matter. It's not going to go away because your belief system says one thing or another. It's just going to keep changing you. And, you know, you might want to look at it from an internal standpoint. Your DNA is not resisting this. It knows. And it knows that it is capable of opening its dormant telomeres into the embrace of the transformation being called upon by the Kundalini. It doesn't resist. All of your major organs, they don't resist. They don't resist these gifts. The heart, the brain, the kidneys, the gallbladder, the liver, the stomach, all of it. They will all begin their own special adjustments to the flow of Kundalini as it infuses itself into them. So look at that, and look at how you can take a teaching from these major organs, from these body parts. Look at the cranium. Look at the cranial migration. Okay, and how the head reshapes itself to in a way sponsor the Kundalini as it's flowing out of the fontanelle. Cranial plate migration. Your mental body will also really, really slow down or really, really speed up. The immune response will increase or decrease, and the enzymes and the hormones that are given into the body, you know, these will not resist the Kundalini. So really, I mean, if your internal organs and your internal applications are not surrendering to this, why does your ego, need to resist? There is no need to struggle in fear. And you're going to be around those who will push fear into you. They will do everything that they can do in their power to talk with you, to show you how fearful things are. They will go out of their way. It's almost like they have this little agenda of fear that they need to promote in order to make themselves feel safer, which it doesn't. It just spreads the fear out even farther. But with the Kundalini, the last thing you want to do is to go into fear. And there's no need to resist, because resisting the Kundalini is a form of fear. Kundalini is natural. It's a natural force upon the body. And it's very similar to puberty. You could even describe it as the puberty of the soul, as I have done before on these programs. And so it's very important to understand this. One can go back and forth on the hamster wheel of acceptance and resistance without making any progress, with an eventual degeneration into fear, which will corrupt what the grace is bringing if you choose to hover or to sit on the fence and just say, well, is it saved? Is it not saved? Is it good? Is it bad? I mean, I don't know anything about this. There's nothing on the internet about this. This one guy, this one teacher is claiming to really know, but people have given him such a bad reputation because they're not happy with what he is saying, because it contradicts their religion, or it contradicts what they want to have in the public. And so these other teachers and these entities, these dark entities, will come in and infect people with the Kundalini and do everything they can do within their power, using these people as finger puppets to promote levels of untruth, to promote levels of fear, to promote levels of resistance. And so it's really important for you to know this and understand this, and let your own Kundalini, let your own consciousness, not the promoters of fear or terror. These are digital terrorists, and they are doing everything they can do to harm your acceptance of the Kundalini within you. Okay, and so if your Kundalini is asking for devotion from you, then give it, and they will attack you for this. They will attack you for that, for giving your devotion to the Kundalini. They will call it bullshit. They will call it lies. They will call it anything that they can call it in order to disenfranchise you with it. And in whatever way the Kundalini is asking you, stop getting in the way of yourself by allowing the ego to buy into these fears and block your passage. Have enough personal strength and self-discipline and courage to keep your ego and the egos of others promoting fear-based questions and terrifying realities out of your inner and external conversations. Trust your Kundalini process. Trust it with your life, because your life is in the hands of God, which is God is the force behind the Kundalini process. And I'll tell you what, if the Kundalini in you has given you a teacher, then trust that teacher too. And yes. So the entities will dip in and use their little finger puppet people, also known as trolls. Use these little finger puppet people. Say, "Oh my God, don't do that. Don't give a flesh teacher your attention. Don't give devotion to a flesh teacher. Oh my God, don't do that." Why? Well, because they could be corrupt too. They could be corrupt too. But I don't think your Kundalini would give you to a corrupt teacher. Kundalini, divinity, does not make mistakes. And so if the Kundalini is giving you Kriyas, then trust that it knows what is best for you as it gives itself into you in these ways. If you're seeing entities, then trust that the Kundalini knows this can be a very frightening experience, and trust her guidance within these fields of evolution. Trust it. The little fear finger puppets, they're going to say, "Oh my God, you're in hell," or you're schizophrenic, or you're bipolar, and you shouldn't be seeing anything that everybody else doesn't see. And so something's dreadfully wrong with you. And this is not true. These are absolute lies. These are illusions being thrust in front of your disbelieving face because it knows that you are already kind of teetering on the fence. You don't know which way to go with it. And I am promoting trusting the Kundalini, trusting it completely. And do your best to not constantly reach into the past as a way of wishing or hoping for the more familiar scenarios in your life, the familiar comforts that you've had, until the Kundalini came along and disrupted that ego-led life you're living. The past is not going to come back. The past has been used as a formula, a format to bring you safely and securely into the many changes that the Kundalini brings. Okay, it's there to bring you into levels of learning, levels of evolution, levels of grace that the Kundalini is really striving, even against your blockages, to try to bring into you. And so it can be a definite challenge for your ego. Your ego is going to get a real workout, and it's going to get a real level of change applied to it, which it will resist. It will resist. And so I'm really suggesting that you have that self-discipline. You have that inner evolution. You have that inner dialogue, which allows you to not be afraid of that which you do not know. Okay? I mean, this can make a very, 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 very strong, it can make a very strong argument, or a challenge for your emotional body. Because your ego extends its fingers into the emotional body, the mental body, the psychological body. The ego has its strengths in every one of those bodies. And so your emotions can really go out, really go far beyond what they normally would. And it can be really, really, really happy, or really, really, really paranoid and fearful. And I'm going to ask you right now, which one would you rather be? Insanely joyful, or happy, or strongly paranoid and fearful? Which one is the one that you would prefer to have? And I'm going to tell you, most of the fearful qualities will come from a lack of understanding of the process. And from that lack of understanding, a very definite resistance to it by the ego comes into the person as the ego spreads its terror into the emotional body. And so don't buy into these fears, and don't buy into these promoters of fears, these finger puppet troll people. Know what is occurring and accept and embrace the many changes that are happening to you. Don't fear them. Follow the instructions the Kundalini will give, and do not expect them to always be verbal, as if you're talking to a person. Sometimes that occurs, but much of those that come as a voice will typically have an entity origin, and for that, as many of you know from previous programs, you stay away from those by ignoring them totally. The Kundalini has many vectors of communication, including the dream state and the waking vision state, through the intuitive states as well. But with the intuition, be careful there, as the ego can insert itself into what one may discern as an intuitive state, when in fact it is really an ego state. So follow the instructions that you're given in the diverse ways that they may come. Sometimes phenomena can be a way of communication from the Kundalini, but it's best not to attach to that, because, first of all, they come and go without the reasons or linear logic that the mental ego mind may wish to believe. And because of that, because of their waxing and waning, or their, the semi how do you say it? I'm looking for a word here. The ways that it can be so random. Random is that word I was looking for. And so really don't try to attach the phenomena, because phenomena isn't really about it. Sometimes it can be seen as a sign and a symptom in a communication, but other times it just randomly comes up as the Kundalini is seeing certain areas within the spinal cord need to be infused at a certain time, without really giving relevance to what's happening outside of the consciousness of the person. So watch it when it comes to phenomena. Give the true guidance of the Kundalini a chance to work for you. You may find a much greater level of internal serenity than ever before. Give your devotion. Give up your willpower to the Kundalini, to God, to divinity. Call it what you will. Forget what you think you know or understand of spiritual matters. You have been born behind a very strong and relentless veil of forgetfulness. This has been arranged on purpose. And, the purpose of that is that your honesty and your truth in response to life and karma will be intact. You don't know your karma for that very same reason. You don't know your karma. You don't know the workings of the multiverse that are around you. But you can get some very specific information from the awakened Kundalini. The Kundalini knows and is very willing to give, but you must also give. And in many ways, that giving from you is of the old ego-controlled life, i.e., the old fear-responsed ego-controlled life, i.e., another I-E, I-I-E-E, the old fear-based response that comes from something that we don't have information on. Okay, it's very, very, very important that you begin to see things that way. And oh boy, I forgot to put the chat room. Well, here we go. Launching the chat again, my friends. My apologies. Wow, what a mess up. Thank you. Thank you for being patient and listening. Those of you, there we are. I see Cole and Vincent, Mary Jean, Manisha, Lorne, John, Samo. Hello, John. Hi, Helly. Hello, Helly. And then we have some guests there. Hello, guests. So yeah, this is very, very important for you to understand. You don't want to respond to fear, and you don't want to respond to negativity that is being pushed at you. As I said before, make your own choices. Make your own decisions. Have enough courage. Have enough self-confidence. Have enough confidence in the divine structures within you, which I know. I mean, in the Western technological world, that is not a very strongly taught component of our normal waking life. But do your best to really, really reach into this and allow the Kundalini to help you. If you have any questions on it with this program, I'd like you to call United States area code 347-934-0026. For those of you that are overseas, I believe you'd have to put a 01 in front of the 347-934-0026. Is that right, Amelia? Is that right?
Yes. Yep, that's right, Chrism.
Oh, thank you, my dear. Thank you. All right. So if you have any questions and you're overseas, 01-347-934-0026. If you're in the United States, it's just that 347-934-0026. And so, yeah. You know, I've just come back from a really, really nice trip. A trip that took me to Ireland and to France and to Switzerland and to a little bit of Germany and to England, and was honored to be able to give an hour and a half talk at a really fine conference, tcche.org, and I encourage everybody to go there. That's tcche.org, and you can go out and you can see kind of what the ambiance was. I was able to do a workshop a week after the conference, and that went very, very well. And you know, I may be coming back to London shortly, and so I'd like everybody to in the UK, but also Ireland, England, France, Germany, Spain, Portugal, Belgium, to be aware that you know, there is another Kundalini conference that's going to be taking place in London, and I'm looking at possibly January, in the dead of winter. Oh my gosh, you know, and you know, don't let your fear attach to any of that, and we'll visit London again. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Santara on. And hi, Santara. Thanks for covering.
You're welcome, Chrism.
And what was your experience in London? How did that go for you?
It went really well. The conference itself was excellent. Am I repeating, Chrism?
Say again?
Can you hear me twice? I can hear myself talking.
Yeah, I just hear you once, though.
Okay.
I hope maybe somebody, maybe Cole or Vincent or somebody or Helly can let us know if we're getting a repeat on there.
Well, I'll continue, and if we are, let me know. Okay, I can
Please,
deal with the double sound in my head. Okay. So it was a wonderful experience. First of all, the conference itself was really interesting. There was some very interesting speakers there, and I really enjoyed your talk as well, Chrism. But we had a wonderful workshop the following, was it the 5th of September? There was 20-something people at it, and that was very nice. One of the things I really enjoyed was meeting other Kundalini people. I met Manisha and Magdalene, and hi Manisha, I know you're there in the chat room. I can't see you, but I know you're there. And I met Tanya, and I met Callie Koo, and there's nothing. I mean, I was speaking to Manisha about this, and there, you know, she was saying as well how it was very a great and wonderful surprise to her how wonderful it is to meet other Kundalini people and be with other Kundalini people. She was coming to meet Chrism and to meet me and to meet some other people, but that was an amazing bonus for her to be in the presence of other Kundalini people. And so Chrism is coming back in January, and it looks as if that's going to happen. And so I would put a call to everybody to really listen to us when we say that it is an amazing and beautiful thing to meet other Kundalini people and to have the opportunity to spend a day with them or 2 days with them or half a day with them and just share that radiance and just the joy and the blessing of being in this process with each other. There's very hard to put words on it, isn't it, Chrism, to be in that position?
Right. I mean, to meet these people, and typically, we're going to these sacred areas, like this last one. We went to St. Albans in England, and you can look that up. That's spelled Saint, capital S-T, period, and then Albans would be capital A-L-B-A-N-S, and this was an old Roman city of Verulamium. And this city of Verulamium existed in the 2nd century after Christ, and was the 3rd largest Roman city in England. And this is back when London was called Londinium, and the Romans had quite the presence in the southern section of England, south central England, and Verulamium was just really a beautiful, beautiful city. They had They had their structures were made out of flint, which is very interesting, and the later civilizations that came after the Roman, built all of their buildings out of the Roman city, and so you see all of these churches built out of flint, and you even see homes that have the whole flint design. But the interesting about St. Albans is it became a place of healing, and as the Christians came in and built St. Albans, well, the reason why St. Albans is a saint, and I think I covered it in another program. I think if it's hard to remember, but St. Albans did we?
We did. You mentioned it last week about the first martyr, and
Maybe. And so, but it's the healing quality, and this speaks to the Kundalini. This speaks to divinity. It's the healing quality of St. Albans that really, really makes a difference. And before there was an American Medical Association, or the European equivalent of the American Medical Association. I should say the American Meddlesome Association. But before there was that in the European Union, people had nowhere else to go. There were some shamans, there were some local shamans they could go to, but they were not, they would go to a place like St. Albans, and they would lay themselves down on that hilltop, and they would pray, and they would ask for a healing, and it became so popular for doing this, and I guess for people receiving the healings, that it was at that point one of the top destinations for Europeans as far away as Rome to come and receive a healing there. And so, when you visit with your Kundalini brethren and sistren, you're typically visiting with walking, talking, spiritual foundations of truth and love and happiness and education and learning. And like Santara says, come and feel the radiance. Let the radiance affect you. Let it come within you, and let it bolster the activation or the awakening you're already having. So it does look like I may be coming back to London in January, possibly late November. I'll keep everybody apprised, but I have a Minnesota seminar in November, and I'm going to put you in the blue, my dear, and then I'm going to bring Rosemary out. And Rosemary, do you have any announcements you'd like to make?
Yes, I do. And when you mentioned the seminars, and you said in November, indeed we do, November 14th and 15th, and you will be coming before that as well for an expo that is the 7th and 8th here in town, and then talks the week before. And we'll be delighted to welcome people. I enjoyed what you were saying, Amelia and Chrism both, of being in the radiance of one another, and what a gift that is. I think of the times on Yahoo and Facebook when you can experience that, but to be with people during that time. And we welcome all of you to come to the seminar as well with the people of Minnesota here.
Can you tell them how to contact you, Rosemary?
Yeah. My information is 651-329-9615, and Rosemary G at usinternet.com. And I'll be watching and listening.
Thank you, my dear, and coming back to the blue with you. And so, it is really a beautiful event. I mean, I was lucky enough to meet Lauren White and Cole and Manisha and many of the other Kundalini awakening people in the last 6 months. And wow, what a grace a Kundalini awakened person is. What a strong level of radiance these people give out, and they give out, and it becomes a very healing radiance. And so when we had Kundalini at the Castle that was put on by Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez, oh, what a grace that was, because we were all, not all of us, but many of us were able to be in the same, we were renting rooms out of the castle itself, and we filled that place with Kundalini. It was so beautiful. And so, I would really strongly suggest that you come to London or you come to Minnesota. Or we're also looking at putting on a seminar in Montreal, Canada. And I know that Eileen, for a while, has been working on a seminar in Florida. And so whenever these seminars come up, I think it is a really, really beneficial scenario for a person that's having early activation sequence, or even if you had it for a number of years, to come and contact your brothers and sisters in the Kundalini. It's a very, very, very happy scenario. Seriously so. Okay. Continuing onward. Don't let fear corrupt your process. Do not let fear come in and corrupt your process. Do not believe what people tell you that don't have the Kundalini, or that have a bias against a system or a teacher or in some way. Do not let somebody else external to your Kundalini begin to call the shots for what decisions and choices you're going to make. Okay? It's very, very, very important that you stay in charge of your own situation, your own body, your own grace. Nobody else should have the opportunity to make choices for you that are based in fear. This has come up recently, and so I want this to be known. Don't necessarily believe what people tell you, because a lot of people have an agenda that doesn't necessarily promote the honest activation and awakening of your Kundalini awakening process. So really know this, and really embrace yourself with this. Embrace your Kundalini with this, and your Kundalini will embrace you right back. Now, I would like to hand the microphone over to Santara, and she may have some announcements.
Hi, everybody. I do indeed have a few announcements. The first one is, I've only one announcement actually today, because the London conference is over now, so I won't be announcing that today. So I'd like to tell you where you can go if you would like to make a donation to support the work that Chrism does. There are two websites I can give you now. The one I have been giving you all along is www.ascension-kundalini.blogspot.com. But there's a simpler one that's easy to remember, and it's chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. And I've been giving you that for the last week or two, and it's an easier one. So it's chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. And again, there's a donate button there, and you can press that, and it's a very simple process to make a donation. Donations are, really necessary and gratefully received. And so all donations that are sent are put to good use, and we are very grateful for them. Please don't feel pressure to give a donation. There's no expectation of one. Yes, donations are absolutely and gratefully received. So I'm going to give it to you again. It's www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. And if you would prefer to give a donation and not use PayPal or not use a credit or debit card, you can contact me and I can give you alternative ways of making a donation through the bank or some methods such as that. And you can contact me on kundalinimatters@gmail.com and we can have a conversation there. So, Chrism, that's the only notification, but whenever you're ready, I do have some questions and I can ask whenever you want me to.
This is a good time, my dear. Let's start with the questions.
Okay, well, I have a few. One of them is, if control is an illusion, what is the point of doing practices to awaken oneself or try anything spiritual that pertains to awakening Kundalini?
Control is used as a vector of trying to control the Kundalini, not necessarily controlling the recipient of the Kundalini. The Kundalini has given very specific practices for helping the person nourish the Kundalini. These practices are called the safeties protocols, and you can reach this at Kundalini Awakening Systems 1. That's the number 1.com, and in the left-hand menu, about the fifth option down, you'll see the safeties, and I invite you to read those safeties, copy down those safeties, let those safeties begin to work for you. This isn't controlling the Kundalini, this is controlling yourself. You know, there's no need to control the Kundalini. Kundalini knows exactly what to do in your system. It's your self-control that needs the work, that needs the daily practice, that needs the daily and sometimes twice daily management protocols to help you to allow a nutritional ingestion of different protocols that allow you to have and to hold the Kundalini safely, i.e., you don't have fear. You take fear out of the equation. You don't necessarily allow fear or frightening terrorist type of scenarios to corrupt your inner education, your inner foundation of what the Kundalini itself is bringing. The Kundalini won't necessarily try to control your ego. That's your job. People have this mistaken idea that, well, oh gosh, I have Kundalini now, I don't have to do anything. Kundalini's going to do everything for me. I'll just stand here and I'll just let the Kundalini do everything to me. And the non-resistant part of that I love. I think that's great. But it's an incorrect understanding, because you do have to lift a finger. You do have to go into a practice or go into a scenario where you're opening up those aspects of yourself to the Kundalini. You are in active agreement with the Kundalini within you, and you're putting your hands in the Gayad Mudra, bringing your eyes to the brow point, putting your thumb tip behind the upper front teeth. You're bringing your chin slightly down when you meditate. You are actually having daily meditational practice. I recommend starting on a half an hour and then bringing it up to an hour and then going further if you can. This isn't taking away the Kundalini's infusive nature. It's not trying to control the Kundalini. You're trying to control yourself. You're taking the ego and you're controlling the ego. And you're doing very specific things to keep the ego from resisting the Kundalini, which it will do naturally. Because it's Kundalini in many ways is an unknown, unseen force. You'll feel it. You'll feel it strongly, and it will give you visions, but it won't give you the kind of vision that you're used to working with. It won't be a vision like you're watching a TV, or it's not like you're driving a car or walking in nature or walking in a city. Sometimes it can bring itself that way. I'm not trying to limit the Kundalini at all, but what I am saying is typically the Kundalini relies on your own self-discipline to do the work that helps you allow it to bring itself into stronger expression within your body. Done.
Thank you, Chrism. If the spinal sweep takes one to the first platform of enlightenment, what are the other platforms? Thank you.
The activation is another platform. The activation is what drives you to the spinal sweep. You know, when you get activated with Kundalini, you're constantly pushed and forced and nudged and brought into the various practices and the various understandings and information that you need in order to go further into it for yourself. You know, the questioner may be asking, well, what's beyond a spinal sweep? Well, let me tell you, what is beyond blending with divinity? How do you get beyond that? How do you get beyond that and still have a corporeal being? And there are ways, but let's just have you get to the blending with divinity first. Let that happen first. And then the Kundalini itself will give you the answers to the rest of that question. Done.
Okay. Next question. Is it possible that Kundalini will make your body gain extreme amounts of weight as part of either a rewiring process, distribution of energy, cleansing, or a test of devotion?
The question was, is it possible?
Yeah, is it possible that Kundalini will make your body gain extreme amounts?
That's a one-word answer. I mean, of course it's possible. So I could say yes. Yes, it's possible. Is it always probable? No. Sometimes you'll lose copious amounts of weight. You'll lose 30, 40 pounds without even trying. You'll be able to maintain that amount of lost weight without even trying. Matter of fact, I've heard of that far more than I have heard of it putting copious amounts of weight on a person. It's far more common that they lose weight without even trying, because the metabolism is being changed, and the level of use of the body's hormones and endocrine system are being changed, and therefore the metabolism being changed, typically sped up and typically using more of the body's stores of fat than it normally would in the unawakened state. But yes, it is possible that the Kundalini could have a person add more weight. Done.
Okay, thank you. Is Kundalini the same as the Holy Spirit? Is that a fair assumption?
Assumption, well, the Holy Spirit pertains to Christian understandings, and it doesn't really deal with Buddhist or Hindu or Muslim understandings. This is fairly a Christian question, and so, you know, and then within the many different varieties and flavors of Christianity, some recognize the Holy Spirit and some don't. You know, a lot of it's going to depend on what flavor of Christianity we're talking about. Would it be the Catholic flavor of Christianity? Would it be the Mormon flavor of Christianity? Would it be the Jehovah's Witnesses flavor of Christianity? Would it be the Lutheran, the Episcopal flavor of Christianity? What flavor of Christianity are we speaking about? You can't really generalize Christianity because there are so many different views and expressions and understandings of what Christianity is. So I will just say that for those that may recognize a Holy Spirit as being the invisible force of the divine upon a person, then I'll say yes. Yes. If that is indeed what a particular brand of Christianity would espouse.
How does our own Kundalini affect the people in our lives, and do we have any say in it? That's what I'm wondering. End of question.
Okay. Yeah, the Kundalini affects the people around us in many, many different ways. How does the radiance of God affect anything around it? How does divine radiance, how does something of such grace and beauty and joy and happiness and purity affect those around it? Well, it brings those qualities of grace and joy and happiness and purity into the environment around it. It also brings levels of trust. It also brings levels what can only be seen as religious devotionalism. Holiness, I guess, is another way of putting it. And so, do you get to control that? No. You don't get to control Kundalini radiance. You can control who you're around. You can control how you respond to that radiance. You can control whether you resist it or try to resist it. Hello?
Oh, no.
Hello? Are you there?
Hello? You're
Hello.
still there, Chrism, but I'm not hearing you.
I'm here. Hello.
I'm looking at... Oh, why did you stop?
I didn't. I kept talking. Gotta love this. Am I coming through?
Okay, you are now, but there was a complete silence for 2 or 3 seconds or 4 or 5. Okay, and I wasn't in the studio, so I didn't know if you had left. You're still here. Okay, continue.
Can you remain in the studio, please?
Well, when I go to ask the questions, there is another place, and I'm on my iPad. So,
well, that's the problem. It's your iPad. Yes, Haley's saying we can hear you. I don't know. I mean, I think it may be your iPad that is kind of like messing up a little bit. I know mine does. So we know mine does. So you don't have access to a laptop yet, do you?
No, not at this minute, but I do this every week and there's not a problem. So, I don't know, Chrism, you stopped talking earlier and you were bumped off, so you stopped talking on my side. You just went quiet for a minute. So
that's true enough. Go ahead. Let's see. I think I answered it to the point that you can control how you respond to the radiance, but you don't get to control what Kundalini radiance does to other people.
Okay, thank you. Does working out affect Kundalini and how?
So now are you clicking back to the studio?
No, I'm not in the studio.
Okay.
Chrism, this is what I've been doing for months, so please trust that. It's fine.
Exercise.
I'm not making those banging noises. I'm not making any noise.
Exercise can ground a person. It can really ground a person, and it can, of course, help the cardiovascular system. But if a person is having copious amounts of fear or uncertainty within their Kundalini awakening scenario, a grounding is very, very, very helpful, and that heavy exercise can give that grounding. Done.
Okay. Is synchronicity the same as spiritual guidance, guardian angels, animal spirit guides? Is it God's helping hand, revelation? These are all similar ideological variations. How are these connected with Kundalini?
I don't agree with that premise at all.
Okay.
I don't think synchronicity is indicative of any of the qualities, and I don't think there are similar qualifications or experiences within the Kundalini. So how they relate to Kundalini is going to be, different to the experiencer, and it's going to be different, to each experiencer. Kundalini, as I mentioned before, knows your spiritual history, and so based upon your spiritual history is going to be what those qualities will espouse for the individual. People keep trying to amass Kundalini into this whole generalized understanding that is logical and linear, and it's very, very particular to the individual, and it is not logical or linear. And so due to that particularity to every individual having the Kundalini, and yes, even though there are shared points, whether these qualities that person is asking about are related will be determined by their karma, by their spiritual history, and by the Kundalini awakening within them. Done.
Thank you. Okay. How long does the purification phase last?
As long as it needs to last. There's no end date on that. You'll be pure. You can purify for years and years and years. I know I did. But I didn't have any information about the Kundalini. Okay, so that may, in and of itself, have kind of jaundiced my experience because I didn't have any information on it. Therefore, I had to take it really, really slow, step by step, and I had to learn from trial and error. Not necessarily the case for those listening to this broadcast. Right now on the internet, there are plenty of different areas for study of the Kundalini, for reading of people's various experiences in the Kundalini, and I'll direct you to the Kundalini Awakening Systems, the .com website, and there's a whole page of people's experiences there, different people having different experiences, and I invite you to go there. I invite you to join Kundalini Awakening ! On the Facebook group so that you can read about people's different Kundalini experiences there. And we also have Kundalini Awakening Systems 2 on Facebook. We have Kundalini Awakening Systems 1 on the Yahoo groups, and Kundalini Healing on Yahoo groups. And we have Chrism.Kundalini on the YouTube channel. So that's Chrism.Kundalini on the YouTube channel. You can look that up, and you can begin to really educate yourself about and there are other people on the web that are talking about the Kundalini too. There are plenty of people on YouTube that are telling you about their Kundalini awakening experience. And so you can really go there and you can really begin to educate yourself about how this is for other people and you know, compare it to yourself. And I would strongly urge a person to look into that. It's not going to be the same for everybody. Done.
Well, Chrism, what is the purification phase?
The purification phase is much like a detoxification phase or stage where impurities like fear, impurities like uncertainty, impurities like attachment to desires, attachment to power, attachment to control, attachment to the ego. These levels of attachments get in the way of working your way through the illusions, the very, very, very strong illusions that they present a person within the Kundalini activation or awakening. And so this purification can last a long time. In other programs, I've talked about ayahuasca and how in the South American countries they call it la purga because it purges a person of many of the impurities that they carry around with them in everyday life, and they collect in everyday life, and it purges them a lot. And you probably have to do it more than once. It's not a one-time scenario, but it's probably, I know some people have done it hundreds of times, and they still have more purging to go. With the Kundalini, it will put you into a purging. It will put you into a purge that is very, very, very strong. You can have rashes from it. You can have weight loss from it. Because all of a sudden you're purged away from foods that you would normally eat that you're not allowed to eat anymore, or you're purged away from damaging yourself. If you're a very gluttonous kind of person, well, that gluttony is purged away from you, and so it has direct ramification upon the health and the conditioning of the physical body, this purification. But it doesn't stop with the physical body. It goes straight into the emotions. And so if you're harboring grudges, or if you're harboring negative self-dialogue, if you're constantly chewing yourself out for not being good enough or not worthy enough or whatever, those things are going to get purged. And so a great level of room inside of your emotional body is going to open up for self-validation and love for self and love for others. And, you won't be having so many arguments with other people. You'll be able to forgive them and tolerate them and understand that they're basically 12-year-olds in, adult bodies. And you got to treat them like, in a very different way, a very compassionate way, in a way that is very, very strong in unconditional love. And unconditional love itself is a purification, because no longer do you have the expectations that we attach to the idea and the quality of love. When you give love unconditionally, well, there are no conditions. There are no conditions attached to it. So your ego has nothing to grab onto. And that in and of itself is a purification. And so, yeah, there are many, many, many different levels of purification within the Kundalini, and it can go on and on and on and on and on as per the Kundalini in you, as fast as the Kundalini in you wants to compel you to go into these purifications. And so it can last years and years and years, but you'll get lighter and lighter and lighter, and you'll carry more of a divine charge with every purging that takes place. So don't resist those purgings. Actively go in to the purification. Actively go into the detoxification. And this will serve you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
I barely
That's
hear you.
fabulous.
Are you moving stuff around there? Or are you absolutely still?
I'm absolutely still.
Okay. All right. It's just Skype.
Okay, yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you, Chrism. Now, there's a question about chronic sore throats and people suffering from chronic sore throats. And there was another question that somebody had about, having one symptom in particular. This person is getting a lot of flus and colds, and he is calling them ascension flus and colds, and having them every other week. And it's been going on for months, and, all of this. So what about those aspects of physical illnesses that come like that?
That's a great level of ego embellishment, to call it an ascension flu or an ascension virus or an ascension cold. I mean, this person is really trying to program themselves to think that they're just, the next thing you know, they're going to be sprouting angel's wings and taking off into the sun. Sometimes the Kundalini is going to revamp the immune system, and while that process is in place, we can experience more colds and more viruses and more of the things that can make us ill. But as that process continues, the immune system is definitely strengthened, is definitely given into greater levels of expression that doesn't allow these ascension illnesses to occur. The one thing that I feel is kind of positive is they're looking at it in a positive way. Ascension this. You can say it as well. Well, I had an ascension dismemberment of my left leg, and it just means that I don't really need that left leg anymore because, I'm ascending, and therefore if I'm ascending, who needs to walk? Right?
Mm.
Kidding. You kind of see my point. The immune system can be very, very, very strengthened, but sometimes you need to go through the weakness of the immune system first as it is being changed before you can appreciate the strength that it has been given after the change is more advanced. Done.
Okay. I have been experiencing low mood, fatigue, confusion, loneliness, and I can't seem to be able to meditate anymore. I can't type well. I don't seem to be making sense. I want to be in solitude, keep away from my friends. Is this a sign of an awakening or transcendence into a higher state, and then I'm back into a lower state again?
Well, I mean, it depends on whether the person is even having other Kundalini symptoms. Do you know if they are, Amelia?
I don't know, Chrism. That's just a question, so I don't know.
Was that a question off the Kundalini Awakening group?
I can't remember it because it was a couple of weeks back. I'm sorry.
Okay, and so the scenario is that in many ways, yes, the Kundalini can make you go very, very, very internal. You don't want to be around other people. You don't want to be around family or friends or loved ones. You just need your private space. You just need to be able to be alone rather than being surrounded by people. And so a person will go into that space and will cherish that space and will have that space open up for them. It's not wrong. It is not wrong to have this. It is actually quite good. We live in a society that really pushes type A extroverts and really kind of diminishes the introverts among us. And sometimes the Kundalini, in its broadening of the human equation, will allow us to have that introverted and private and inner silent self as an expressive quality throughout our day. And it's very important that a person be able to have this and nourish this and not self-punish themselves or see it as something that is wrong as the Kundalini brings this up. And it will bring this up for everybody to one degree or another. Conversely, it can also push a person into the extroverted self. So if you're an introvert, the Kundalini can animate your charisma to such a degree as that you cannot help but to be an extroverted, charismatic individual. And so it works both ways. And this is definitely a part of the broadening of the human expressive spectrum within Kundalini awakening. Done.
Thank you. Would you describe intuition as a message from our higher self to us? I am referring to the duality that we feel in our conscious. If yes, then do you think it happens to people who do not practice Kriyas or safeties?
Well, of course it does. I mean, people that have the Kundalini, it doesn't sound like that's a real Kundalini-oriented question because the person's really not mentioning Kundalini in there. They're mentioning intuition. Now, intuition is a feature of Kundalini, but Kundalini is the arbiter of intuition. And within a Kundalini context, I would say that intuitive processes are controlled directly by the Kundalini and can serve as a message center or communication attempt from the Kundalini to the individual. But there's care that needs to be involved with that, because sometimes the ego will create its own form of intuition based upon its prognostication or its promoting of a possible future fear. I know that when I was in my 20s and I was a professional driver, or as I was hauling around really heavy loads or generations in the car that I was driving, that I would always kind of imagine which vector an accident would come from, and I'd remind myself how I would respond to that emergency situation. And so in a way I was forecasting possible futures that would allow me to be sharp and highly responsive if that possible future were to take place. And so that would be kind of like ego-based intuitional process. Kundalini-based intuitional process is far more advanced, and it is far more along the lines of the Kundalini infusion of itself into the individual and how that may affect them. And so it would give teachings within the intuitional stage. It would give teachings. It might give a warning if a person was walking in a wrong direction, or if there's a person there that the person is exploring, and the Kundalini is saying, stop all engines, don't go forward, reverse thrust. It could do that as well. And so, the Kundalini, within a Kundalini context, intuition can be co-opted by the Kundalini and can indeed be a communication vector for the individual. Done.
How is the spinal sweep different from the transformational ascent?
The transformational ascent can be seen as the activated Kundalini. That is the ascent. And once one ascends to the top of that mountain or to the top of that pyramid, that's when the spinal sweep takes place. And so, in a way, the spinal sweep is the destination. Merging with divinity is the destination. The inculcation of the god and the goddess within the mundane, physical, mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual being is that response, and that is the ascent. And so the Kundalini spinal sweep is the invitation into the heavenly fields while still having a body and living a life on this world. Done.
Thank you. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I see patches of colour, sometimes deep red, indigo, pink, etc. I want to know what these colours indicate. Is there any relation with Kundalini?
Well, sometimes the Kundalini can activate the phosphenes within the structures of the eyes. Phosphenes are particles that will light up within different scenario. Sometimes that scenario will be directly influenced by the Kundalini, and so you want to look at how you're feeling, what you're doing, what is going on in your life during your Kundalini awakening or activation to see what the phosphenic attributes are. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes they'll come as very, very distinct patterns of color or bright pinpoints of lights that are extremely brilliant that float into your visual field. These are typically, when I was giving Shaktipat for people in early seminars, I would see these points of light around an individual, and I was given very clear indication that this person can have this gift, and to go ahead and give that gift to the person, and they would get it, and so it can indicate Kundalini communication, but the particular colors for this particular individual, because I'm not in their space, I am just going to abjure that to their Kundalini process and allow that to rest assured. So, for instance, pink is not necessarily the color of any of the chakras, but pink is definitely red and white mixed together in some way, and so you might be able to see it as the divine male and the sacred feminine as a blend. But that's just a formulation that comes to me right now as far as that goes. So phosphenic activity behind the eyes can allow one to see certain patches of color. And sometimes that patch of color will have significance within a Kundalini awakening, and sometimes it will not. You will have to use your level of discernment in what is happening with you at that time with the Kundalini in your life. And done.
Done. Thank you. I feel like my meditations are making me overly sensitive, paranoid, and feel guilty. I'm not sure if this is warranted or simply the effects of enhanced sensitivity due to Kundalini. I don't want to stop meditating. I do 30 to 45 minutes a day. I don't think this is very much.
Okay, well, the person isn't telling me whether or not they're ingesting caffeine. If a person is ingesting caffeine, having the Kundalini, and doing the meditation, well, that can be turned into levels of paranoia. Excess sugars, artificial sugars, excess artificial white flour, the baking flour, the kind of flour that makes bread and pastries and things like that. Definitely any of the GMOs or toxic foods that are out there for consummation. And so you really need to watch what you're putting into your system that will have effect on your Kundalini, which will have effect on the quality of your meditation. No, 35 to 40 minutes is not that long, but perhaps that is long enough for the individual asking the question. Sometimes the Kundalini itself will act as a governor on how much meditation a person can have. So how long has this person been meditating? And is the person getting hot knives through the fontanelle, which is typically a sign from the Kundalini for you to just give it up for a while, give it a rest, give it at least a day. Had another student just the other couple of weeks ago having hot knives pressed into the fontanelle, and when they stopped a day, gave that energy time to be processed by the physical, those hot knives didn't come back, and the person was ready and able to do their meditation, their devotion, and things of that nature. And so, but with paranoia, that has a lot more to do with a fear-based acceptance of certain egoic considerations of survival, of bringing into the system the components of caffeine. Caffeine release the fight or flee hormone within the bloodstream, and when there's nothing to fight or flee, well, then that the ego and the mental mind will create something to fight or flee, and that can be translated into paranoia. Done.
Thank you. Is the Gayatri mantra in any way related to Kundalini?
It can help an activation come. It's a beautiful, beautiful mantra, and it doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt at all. Is it related directly to the Kundalini? No. You could say the Lord's Prayer, from the Christian pantheon, and that is also very much a beautiful, beautiful mantra. You can turn it into a mantra, just like the Gayatri prayer is for the Hindu. But it's a beautiful prayer, and it's talking about beautiful concepts, and so within that context, yes, it can be helpful for the Kundalini. But is it made primarily for Kundalini activation? No. But it can assist, just like the Lord's Prayer can assist. Yeah.
Is it possible to participate in more than one Shaktipat?
The Shaktipots that I give, is that what it's pertaining to? Or just in general?
Doesn't say.
So I can't speak for other teachers that give Shaktipat. I can't speak for them, but I'll speak for myself. I encourage people to have more than one Shaktipat. I give 4 Shaktipats on the equinox and the solstice every year. I give those for free. You can receive them on Kundalini Awakening Systems 1 at Yahoo groups, and you can also receive them on Chrism Kundalini Shaktipat on the Facebook groups. I don't charge for them, but I do ask you to make a public declaration and post a picture of yourself. And I would encourage a person to do that as many times as they want. It doesn't hurt them, and the worst possible thing that can happen is they become a better person. So yeah, I wish the entire society would participate in the Shaktipots that I give, because we'd have a very different, beautiful, wonderful, healthy, happy, compassionate, loving society if we did. But until that takes place, I will encourage those of you that are having the Shaktipat that I give to take it as many times as you wish. Done.
The last 2 days, the energy flow has been great. It's sometimes so strong it almost has a numbing effect. I'm holding my tongue gently on the roof of my mouth, like I read about, and there's heat coming up my throat. What is this pressure, and what I can only describe as thickness in the roof of my mouth?
Repeat that question again.
Okay, the last 2 days the energy flow has been great. It's sometimes so strong it's almost making a numbing effect. I'm holding my tongue gently to the roof of my mouth like I read about, and there is heat coming up my throat. What is this pressure that I can only describe as thickness in the roof of my mouth?
That's the energy traveling across the roof of the mouth. You got to understand that a Kundalini awakened person is like a huge, huge electrical conduit of many, many different frequencies of energy. Kundalini isn't just one frequency; it's many different frequencies of energy. As a matter of fact, each of the bodily systems will have their own specific level of frequency within the Kundalini that allows them to be changed and transformed into a higher frequency of energy. So the endocrine system has its own frequency, the circulatory system has its own frequency, the skeletal system has its own frequency, and so on and so forth. With the Kundalini that's coming up the throat of the individual, and basically the way I'm seeing that is it's flowing upwards towards the tongue tip, and it's warm and it's ticklish. This is all good. The person is doing the right thing. They're completing the sacred circuit within themselves, and I would just encourage them to continue. What is it? Kundalini. It is Kundalini. And what is Kundalini? Well, I'll have you do your research, or just listen to more of these programs to let you know what Kundalini is. I'll give you the short version. Is it's the divine at the base of your spine, and the divine in this context is reaching up through the throat of the individual, through the 5th chakra, and joining itself with the 6th and the 7th through the tongue tip, which is a major circuit right there. And this person is doing the right thing. And the ticklish, warm feeling, just let that be as a gift of grace to you, the individual, as you have that occur. Done.
Now this says it's a question. It says question, and then it says, when I experienced my Kundalini awakening in 2013, the energies were very intense for 9 months. Then they settled down. I still feel them on occasion, but very subtly. However, in March of this year, I did experience some energetic orgasms that would zing upwards for about 8 weeks. Now, there isn't an actual question, but that, I'm just realizing.
Well, and I'll just have to say, have fun, enjoy, and
I think it's probably about it being intense and then settling down and becoming very subtle and then intense again. So, I mean, I suppose
like
that's the flow.
Kundalini, like a sine wave. You'll have your intense periods and you'll have your lack of intensity. And so like that sine wave, like that serpent, looking at a serpent sideways, you see that its body goes up and it goes down, it goes up and it goes down. And the Kundalini in many ways also does that. Done.
Okay, and the last question
now,
is...
Stop. Just a sec. Another question I have here is, why would one experience cities in their dreams? One would experience cities in their dreams to show you how they are responsibly or irresponsibly used. A city is an ascended skill set that is given by the Kundalini for an individual that is Kundalini awakened or activated. And to have the Siddhic skills come into your dream state is a way of communicating to you many different things. One is that you can actually have those Siddhic skills. Two, that there is a proper way to use them or to be used by them. Now, if the individual is possessed by entities, well, the entities can make that person kind of go into a self-aggrandizement state, and that aggrandizement state would indeed slow the process down for the individual. But if the individual is not so controlled by entities, you need to see what the Siddhic skills, how they are being used in the dream state. Are they being used as a way, it's like, okay, A plus B equals C, here's how you use teleportation, or here's how you use psychometry responsibly and honorably and ethically. If it's showing you that, it's definitely from the Kundalini, and it's definitely something you want to pay attention to. But if it is showing you levels of self-aggrandizement, levels of bringing more attention to yourself and being on TV or becoming famous or doing these types of things, then it's definitely from the ego or from an entity that is pursuing an ego agenda, and this is something that you would want to avoid. So either way, they're teachings. One teaches you to accept, and one teaches you to not accept. And so this is going to be something that the individual will want to discern for themselves. Thank you for letting me interrupt you, Amelia. Please continue. Last question.
Okay, the duality of ego and self has got me all messed up. I've been so confused lately on thoughts of life. I feel so much emotion that I can't understand what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it. I struggle with going with the flow. Any words of encouragement would be great, and thank you for your time.
Ego or Kunalini is basically the ancient equation is the two that are one and the one that is two. So it is both singular and plural at the same time. Kundalini people sit on the edge of the Tao. We sit on the rim with our legs dangling down both sides. We are two and we are one. We are one and we are two. And don't let that possess your mind so much. That's nothing to stress out over. That is a very philosophical, esoteric type of thing. Don't struggle with this. Allow the Kundalini to educate you. Allow it to insert its own agenda into your process. And let that agenda and let that process be graced by the relaxation, the serenity, and the extreme focus on your mental mind and the chatter that you have, the inner chatter. Let that be diminished, and let the Kundalini begin to help you in that diminishing of the inner chatter or the constant need for clarification of inane, unimportant points that are only there to distract you rather than to bring you any sense of clarity or focus. Done.
Okay, Chrism, thank you very much. That's the end of the
very
questions.
Welcome, and thank you, my dear. And if anybody in the chat room has a question right now, please go ahead and write it in, And if anybody in the audience has a question, the number is United States area code 347-934-0026. If you're an international caller, call 01-347-934-0026. And I want to say something to the people that are listening as they sleep. I want to say this to them. Sleep, my friends. Sleep. Sleep with the gift of Kundalini grace flowing through you. Let those dreams be of Kundalini. Let that Kundalini grace spread out through your dream state. Let yourself be educated and nourished by the Kundalini. And Guillaume Boulanger, can you explain a bit more about hearing you chanting Chris? Well, yes. The Kundalini gives that chanting through me. It's not something that I give myself. It's the Kundalini chants itself through me. And so if you have heard me chanting, then the Kundalini will take that chanting, replicate it in different stages and states of your awareness throughout the day or the night, within certain scenarios, like in the forest or perhaps in a silent, darkened room, or in a sunlit kitchen. All of a sudden you'll just hear the chanting occur. And that is the Kundalini talking to you and giving you exposition of itself and expression of itself for you, to you. And if you check with your kids or you check with anybody around you, you'll find out that nobody else heard that chanting but you. And so it's a gift that is very, very site-specific to you. And let that occur and chant right along with it. Chant right along with it, my friend. There you have it. Any other questions from our beautiful, beautiful online users? Cole, Vincent, Mary, Lauren, Johanny, Haile, Guillaume, and the guests, the three guests that we have. Please feel free to ask any questions. And if there is a person that is calling in with a question, I'd like to welcome all of the people that are calling in. We have 4 callers right now that are listening, and once again, I'd like to say thank you to Josephine for her kind assistance and the many, many levels of grace that she has demonstrated, not only for myself, but for the Kundalini awakened people population in general. I'd like to extend that to Eileen and Rosemary and Santara as well. Thank you on behalf of the many people who are assisted by the gifts of grace that you give into this world. Santara, Rosemary, Eileen, and Josephine, thank you very much for that. It looks like somebody might be typing a question here, so I'm going to patiently wait with them. Try not to take too long, though, Mr. Individual. I can only tap dance for so long. So yeah. Do you have anything that you'd like to add, Santara?
I suppose I don't. I suppose I could just maybe comment on, what you were talking about earlier, Chris, and how our internal organs don't resist the Kundalini. I really loved that because they don't. And, just don't.
Come on, people. If your lungs aren't resisting it, if your kidneys aren't resisting it, why is your ego resisting it? Come on, people.
Yeah. That I just said, that is amazing, because there is such a truth in that. When you experience Kundalini, you know that is true. And then it's just when you come to know that with regard to, I think my heart was probably the one, that I particularly, it's an amazing thing. And I think that was a wonderful teaching. Our internal organs don't resist. What
and your DNA, your DNA isn't putting out red flags going, oh, no, don't do this. Don't do this.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's that junk DNA, the telomeres know what to do. The telomeres know exactly. The telomeres are part of the genome system for cellular replication, and telomeres they control how many times a cell can replicate, and the telomeres are going, yeah, we got this, not a problem.
Yeah, so it's great teaching. That is a brilliant teaching, I think. So I just wanted to, it made me smile, and it's a good one. But another thing that occurred to me as well, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, I suppose how much is out there that's given to us that contradicts or tries to contradict like what Kundalini is doing with us, stuff that's sort of a bit insipid. I mean, there's definitely people that are in there and they're trying to, disfranchise and, get in there and contradict what's happening and cause harm and attack and all of that. But there's also the things like, the religious conditioning and just how societal norms are there, sort of almost contradicting what Kundalini is doing with us. Even medical norms, I mean, just to go back to, say, our heart or, the different functions. When Kundalini is working with us and is, the internal organs aren't resisting, we'll say, that intrusion or that contradiction that comes from what we accept as, say, medical norms to do with heart. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. So that just occurred to me as well. There's so much that is... that we really just need to keep away and just focus on what the Kundalini is doing with us and surrender.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people that are basically qualified by fear, and so they have bought into the fear paradigm so much that that's the only qualification that they can come from, and that fear causes resistance. That resistance causes blockage. That blockage causes a very, very traumatic and unhealthy response for a person having the Kundalini, and it can send them into the downward spiral of Kundalini syndrome. And so it's very unfortunate that there are people out there actively doing this, but you really can't. You have to forgive them. You have to forgive them. It just makes you work even harder. It just makes you work even harder and to present your case even stronger. And then, dear Santar, you just have to let the chips fall where they may and let the Kundalini reach into those words and those concepts that you're promoting, and let the Kundalini begin to circulate it to those who can have and hold it. You have to trust that process.
Yes, Chrism, but what you're teaching that the Kundalini is a natural force in the body, and at least yes, that's correct, isn't it? It is, and therefore that is something we need to hear more and more and more, so that people will have that information when the Kundalini begins within them. They will have heard this is natural, this is the puberty of the soul, this is a natural force within your body that you're not to resist.
Well, yeah, but it's also like dependent on sites like yours. Kundalini Matters at gmail.com, right?
That's my email address.
Right.
But I do have a Kundalini Matters on Facebook. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And Eileen has Kundalini Living, and it's sites like that are satellite sites of the KAS system, but they're really helpful to people. They're exceptionally helpful to people, and it's very important for those sites to exist. Now, I'm going to answer another person's question. Chrism, why have teachers before you especially in the West, beaten around the bush so much? Why did none of them lay it out like you do? Well, the answer to that is most of them, if not all of them, are charging. They're charging for the information. And say, they just want to give you that little bit, just enough to hook you. Like, keep to the roof of your, so that will give you a little bit of more balance and keep you out of, so they put these blank spots in so that you can just add in the dollar signs. Add in $1,000, in order to make add in another $1,000. And so, they're constantly milking people with their information. And it's not just individual teachers that do this, it's entire ashrams that do this. And, they want your house, they want your car, they want your bank account, they want the clothes on your back. And if they can get it by just giving you a little bit of information, which is typically all they have anyway, then they will. If they, you're like a cow to them, and they just want to milk you and milk you and milk you until they've milked you enough, and they've given you enough, in many cases, incorrect information that basically promotes more of a problem for you. They promote more of a problem so that, it's that whole, causation and resolution equation where they give you inaccurate information which causes a problem which they have the resolution for. Okay, and they will charge you for that resolution. And so those teachers, they have a profit motive in not giving you helpful information. Other teachers just are not Kundalini awakened. They'll say they are, but they're not. They'll say they can awaken Kundalini because everybody wants to be a recipient of the most powerful spiritual equation on this world, which Kunalini is. And so everybody wants to have that, and they want to be seen as a spiritual master. And so they'll come in and they'll say, I have the information of the Kunalini, and I can tell you only so much because you can't handle it. You can't handle it. And they'll peruse the web, and they'll come onto sites like mine. And I've seen plenty of teachers using my information and using my using the verbal things that I use, like spinal sweeping and things of that nature. And they just don't have it to lay out, my friend. They just don't have it to lay out. And they typically have other motivations in line. And I know that a lot of the Sanatana people, they don't like this information coming out at all. And and women can't have spiritual awakening, and they can't be enlightened. And oh my God, you're telling this sacred information to women? Oh my God, how dare you? You should see the hate mail I get. I get hate mail, and I get threatened with death for putting this information out the way that I do. Free of charge, open to the public, let the Kundalini, let your own intuitive sources decide whether it's truthful or not. And for the most part, people are going to see it as truthful because that's just exactly what it is. You can't hide the truth. And the truth will set you free from your fears and free from the many artifacts of control that other teachers would like to place upon you. They would like to place a yoke of control upon you, in order to milk you or in order to have you become dependent upon them. Now, in some ways, like in a devotional context, devotion is a very different scenario, and devotion is controlled by and large by the Kundalini. If a person is being guided towards a devotional aspect, well then their Kundalini is behind that. You can't fake devotion. You can't fake devotion, and the Kundalini in you knows whether you're doing it sincerely or not. That's a different story. I mean, when people are, if people have a devotional practice with me, which some do, I'm not charging them money. Okay? They're not paying me money. They're not paying me any kind of favor, even though I know that on the web, these finger puppets, will say that they are, but they're not. Nobody's paying me anything. Nobody is giving me anything. Nobody's giving me anything that I really want. Okay? Nobody is giving me anything that I have an attachment to. And so my attachment really is to the Kundalini. That's all I have attachment to, and it's attached to me, and this is what comes through. This is what comes through, and you just have to feel the efficacy of it or not. If you don't, if you have a problem with a man giving you this type of information, then it won't come through clearly for you. If you have a problem with the unlimited aspect of the Kundalini that I teach, and you need a more restricted format, well, then this unlimited aspect of Kundalini that I teach will not be for you. Won't be for you at all. So a lot of it has to do with your own levels of direction from the Kundalini. A lot of it will have to be with your own levels of relationship with your own Kundalini. And whether your Kundalini looks at what I'm writing through your eyes and says, that's the one that I want you to follow. And then if you're smart, you'll follow it. Other teachers have their own ways. They're locked inside a religion, and you have to become a person of that religion. You have to become a Hindu or a Christian or a dervish or a Islamic or shamanic or any of the different belief systems out there. Those teachers will promote that you must do this in order to get to where I am, because that's what I did. This is where I am. Therefore, you have to do what I did to get where I am. And I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way at all. I know that everybody comes to the table, the Kundalini table, with different attributes, with different spiritual histories, with different karma, and that is what has brought them to that table. And the energy sitting at the head of that table is the divine male and the divine female, the two that are one, and they are the arbiters of your grace. They are the arbiters of your destiny, and your destiny now rests within their most competent, beautiful, loving arms. And this is another reason why I feel that the information in me gets laid out the way it is, because it's really not Chrism that's laying it out. It's the Kundalini that's laying it out. And I just happen to have a really, really, really strong connection to that force. It uses my voice. It uses my body. It uses my vocabulary. It uses, the various aspects of who I am, but it's calling the shots. It's saying the words. It is doing these things. And thank you, Mr. Individual who doesn't want his name mentioned. Thank you for such a strong question and a very astute question. Thank you. Never heard that question before. Have you, Santara?
No. Good question. Good answer. Yeah. Wonderful, actually. Yeah. Another thing I enjoyed as well, Chrism, earlier when you were speaking was you used the word random, about the phenomena. And that it's not that you haven't said that before, but again, it just struck me in the context of some things that have come up in the groups recently about phenomena, you were saying, trying to remember, that it's not always relevant. The phenomena isn't always relevant to what is actually going on. Sometimes it's random, and to just give up our need to understand it all.
It's random in the context of the ego. It's not random in the context of the Kundalini, but we're going to try to associate a thought or an action or something of that level on what we're experiencing. And, we'll have sometimes the Kundalini will act like a very rapid thermometer in a person's spine. And, for weeks and weeks, it'll lay dormant there. Nothing will really happen. Maybe they'll have a sore, lower back, whatever. All of a sudden, boom, it comes up. And it's like an eruption of energy into the spinal cord, and it's radiating outwards, and we'll try to make sense out of that, and our ego pushes us to make sense. Well, what were you thinking, or what were you doing, or what was happening? And you want to really kind of lean away from that, because you don't know what is really occurring. All you're doing is you're feeling it through the ego. You're not yet being able to experience it through the eyes and the ears and the mental functions of the Kundalini. And so it's really, really helpful not to get addicted to phenomena as a form of intuitive communication from the Kundalini. Sometimes it works, I have to say. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. And by virtue of that is where the randomness comes. And once again, the randomness really comes from our ineffective discernment of what the Kundalini is doing at any given time. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I think we've about milked this program, and so I want to thank everybody in the chat room, and I'd like to thank the callers, and I look forward to next week talking with you about your Kundalini awakening experience. And would you like to say something, Santara?
No, that's it. Thank you very much to everybody for listening. Hi, everybody.
I'd like to thank you, Santara, for tap dancing after I got kicked off. Had to reboot my entire computer. So thank you for doing that. Yeah.
You're very welcome.
I had to reboot the entire. Could not believe it. But thank you, everybody, for your patience and your tremendous listening aptitude. And I would like to end this session with this right here.